I will raise up for them a prophet like you from among their brothers, and I will put my words in his mouth, and he shall speak to them all that I command him. And whoever will not listen to my words that he shall speak in my name, I myself will require it of him.
So who is the prophet like unto Moses? Well, Muslims will tell us that's Muhammad. That Muhammad is the prophet that's being prophesied here. And the reason why they believe it's Muhammad is because when it says among their brothers, they will argue that Ishmael was a half-brother of the Israelites, in the sense that Ishmael was a son of Abraham and a half-brother to Isaac. And they will argue that this prophet comes from the line of Ishmael. Now, that's a very interesting twist to the text, because that phrase, vocab, their brothers, appears throughout Deuteronomy 17 as well, when it speaks about their selection of the Levites, that they're not supposed to select anyone to be priests other than their brothers, the Levites. And then when God instructs them about the one that they would appoint as a king, God says, you're not to place a foreigner as a king over you, but only one from among your brothers. The text, the context is very clear that the brothers that is being mentioned here is a reference to the tribes of Israel, that is within the people of Israel. So that this prophet who is to come, that is to be like Moses, would be one who would be from among the people of Israel. But here's the key, vocab. This is really important. He would be a prophet like Moses. Now, if we ask the question, what was Moses like? What was Moses in terms of being a prophet? What does Deuteronomy 34, 10 to 11 say? This is what it says.
You say 34?
Verses 10 to 11.
Okay.
So this prophet is to be like Moses. So what type of a prophet was Moses?
And there has not arisen a prophet since in Israel like Moses, whom the Lord knew face to face, none like him, for all the signs and the wonders that the Lord sent him to do in the land of Egypt to Pharaoh and to all his servants and to all his land.
So what type of a prophet was Moses? He was a prophet whom the Lord spoke face to face. He was a prophet who did miraculous signs and wonders that the Lord sent him to do in the land of Egypt. Now, one of the reasons why Muhammad cannot be this prophet, like unto Moses, is because Muhammad was so unlike Moses. Muhammad did not perform miraculous signs and wonders.
The next verse says, and for all the mighty power and all the great deeds of terror that Moses did in the sight of all Israel.
Correct. And in the Quran, chapter 7, verses 103 to 118, even the Quran admits that Moses performed these miraculous signs before Pharaoh. And so whoever this prophet is that is to come, who is like Moses, this prophet would have to be a prophet who did miraculous signs and wonders. He would also have to be a prophet whom God spoke face to face with. And so the fact of the matter is the context of Deuteronomy cannot allow for this to be Muhammad. Number one, he was not from the people of Israel. The Quran states that all the prophets come from the line of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. And number two, he was not a prophet who did miracles, because the Quran points out in chapter 13, verse 7, the Quran says this, and I'm quoting now, the unbelievers say, why has a sign not been sent down upon him from his Lord? And then Allah tells Muhammad to say, or Allah tells Muhammad, thou art only a warner and a guide to every people. And so the fact of the matter is this, Muhammad never performed any signs or miracles. The Quran is very clear on this. And therefore, the interpretation of this passage could only mean that this is a prophecy of the coming Messiah, that this prophet like unto Moses would be the Messiah, who would be a new Moses in the sense that he would bring the new law. And what did Jesus do on the Mount, on the Sermon on the Mount? You have heard it was said, but now I say to you. Notice Jesus is strategically sitting on a mountain. Remember, Moses received the law from God on a mountain. Jesus sits on this mountain on the sermon, and he gives the new law. He is the deliverer,
and a new
mediator, the new mediator between God and man.
Tony, hold on.
And
I just
Yeah.
saw a very, very important question.
Sure.
It's not a super chat, but I still think I need to share it, okay?
Sure. Yeah,
Swamp
absolutely.
Thing asks, but did Moses know of the magical properties of camel urine?
No, he did not.
Well,
He did not. Yeah.
then I don't know.
He did not.
And then Luckwan Ahmad says, tell me one thing he failed in. Speaking of Muhammad.
Well, Muhammad failed in the sense that Muhammad was bewitched for a number of years. We're told in the Hadith that he was bewitched. This
Did
is
it
very
happen like
serious. I doubt it. I didn't think there was a sound at the end. But the fact that he was bewitched is a very telling sign that he was not a prophet from God, because the Bible says that sorcery would not afflict Israel and so forth. God would not allow any of his prophets to come under occultic influences. But Muhammad failed in that respect. So there's many other examples of Muhammad. Muhammad believed that he could communicate with the dead. This is also an occultic practice condemned in the Bible called necromancy.
Like, who did he think that he could communicate with?
Well, he could hear the dead speaking in their graves. The Hadith tells us about a time when Muhammad would hear the dead actually screaming. And one of the reasons, and I'm sure you're very familiar with this, one of the reasons was because of urine. And so you've been through that experience in your Islamicize Me series.
Yes, but
So
I had
that's
to
one
remind
example.
someone today on YouTube that we did not actually urinate on YouTube.
Yeah.
We used a
Yeah,
squirt
I figured
bottle
that.
filled with apple juice. So
That's what I thought.
just so everyone knows, the point
Yeah.
of YouTube Hollywood magic made in Phoenix is to make it look real, but it's not real most of the time. Just so everyone knows. Okay, so Muhammad said he could communicate with the dead. Okay, I think Moses spoke against that, if I'm not mistaken.
Oh, of course. It's called necromancy. Deuteronomy 18, same chapter, same passage where God speaks about this prophet who will come like Moses. The same chapter, by the way, that warns us against false prophets. Here's another thing Muhammad failed in. Muhammad never prophesied, never predicted certain events. There's only one prediction in the Quran about the Romans being defeated, but it's not even a precise prediction. It's something within 10 years that this event would transpire, which would have been a guess that anyone could make at the time. It was so evident that the Romans would collapse. But the fact of the matter is, he did not prophesy like the prophets of old did. He did not speak face to face with God either.
Are you willing to briefly take a detour into an atheist question?
Sure, we can try that.
Poor Tony. Earthen says, Moses is no better than Muhammad, and we don't even know Moses existed.
Well, that's not true. Yes, the Bible is our primary source for Moses' existence, but the thing about Moses, which is interesting, is that the very name Moses itself is not Hebrew, it's Egyptian.
Yeah.
And the name Moses is actually attested in the annals of the pharaohs. Some of the pharaohs bore the name Moses, like Thutmose, for instance. So the descriptions of Moses in Egypt seem to match the time of Ramesses.
Yep.
And even his name, like I said, his name is not Hebrew. Moses is a word that means to be drawn out of the water.
Hold on just 1 second. That's a huge difference between Moses and Muhammad, because Moses could be drawn.
Right.
But Muhammad can't be drawn.
Exactly. That's right. Exactly. And the other thing too is